Hello, welcome to our second session of week 6 of our discussion on channels and distribution in our course on marketing management advanced concepts. So, MM2 week 6 session 2. We discussed in the last session about these different types of channel structures for consumer products or industrial products. In both of these, we looked at somewhat simplistic channel structures. These simplistic channel structures do operate exactly as shown for products which are sort of staple products or regularly used industrial products, low or medium value products. But sometimes the structure can be a little bit more complicated. Like this is actually a sort of a chain for food service disposables. So, like say paper cups or plastic cups or plates and so on. So, here you see we have paper mills suppliers, plastic resin suppliers. They supply to what we call converters, that means people who convert these input elements into those cups or plates and so on, what we normally use for parties or for casual eating occasions, picnics and so on. Now, as you see here, we have kind of looked at the entire chain between this converter or manufacturer and the end user in its entirety. So, if you study this in detail, you will see that from the manufacturer or converter here, we have company sales forces who actually go to national accounts and then national account customers and then that this is one kind of channel. So, this is the same product in a more B2B or institutional sales mode. So, this will apply to say disposables, disposable crockery or plates and cups etc., sold to large customers like railways. And then of course, there can be on the other side of it can be for casual purchasers like you and me for a birthday party or for a picnic, and we will normally be served by a small distributor, local distributor, who may be getting his supply from some kind of wholesaler or large outlet nearby. So, as you can see here that when we look at it in detail, usually have a multi-tier, complex and interrelated chain structure. So, the channel structure therefore is not one size that fits all. It depends on the type of product, it depends on the spread of the market or the type of the market, the value of the products sold and so on. And structural changes are necessary as time progresses, as the business volume increases or as the market spread expands for a particular supplier. And these days, due to different types of information and communication technology based channels, due to appearance of what we call m-commerce or mobile phone based commerce or e-commerce or electronic or telecommerce, telephone based buying and selling, or internet based buying and selling, these channel structures are very rapidly evolving. So, there was a time when people went to a store, browsed through different types of products, tried it on in case of apparels or shoes, and then made the final purchase decision. Nowadays, people even often select a particular type of, say, running shoes. They make a choice for a particular brand, they choose color, everything often on the web. And because the depiction of products on the webs have now become far more powerful and realistic, and therefore, from that decision making process which earlier used to happen in the store, and that is why stores had to have a attractive display mechanisms and all kinds of stuff. Now, a lot of that happens on in the virtual world, but the physical purchase, the customer may still go to a store and make the final decision between two alternatives by looking at by the in the physical store through touch and feel. So, what is happening is that more and more channels are getting mixed up, and even structures, large stores are now giving way to more distributed small stores which are more like showrooms. So, the showrooms only show you the product that you would like to compare it with another product, and then based on your order, the item will be delivered to you. It may be delivered right at that point, or it may be delivered with a little delay from another warehouse, and therefore there may be three intermediaries who are involved. There is a web based intermediation where the customer is gathering information, making choices, and then there is somebody who is actually providing some physical comparative platform, and there is another intermediary who is actually fulfilling finally delivery of the order. And the payment system itself also now, because of this electronic mediation, payment partners are another kind of channel partners. As you can see, therefore, the channel partners perform different types of functions today, starting from market research or promotional communication to the physical contact with the customer, to doing some little bit of customization, size alteration of a trouser or fitment of a lady's dress, to sometimes negotiation, physical warehousing to physical distribution, financing. Sometimes the distributors provide finance for a high value product. So, car dealers, for example, often also provide the financing. So, they provide you in a way the loan. So, upfront you may be paying only 20% value or 25% value of the car, and balance 75% you will be paying in equated monthly installments, what we call EMI, and this whole financing arrangement is done by the distributor in conjunction with some bank or some other financial intermediary. So, that is another kind of channel partner that we see more and more in many different types of products. Today on the web, you can even get financing for something like a mobile phone, a smartphone. So, for purchases above 10,000 rupees today, installment financing is often used by customers, and that happens because of this new evolution in the distribution chain mechanism. So, in a way, therefore, across the chain different levels of risks are taken by different channel partners. different types of service commitments are delivered by different channel partners, and overall therefore the relationship between the so you can see the relationship between the end user and the customer is often multi-layered and therefore is a complex affair. So, customer relationship management is today a very involved subject, because the relationship is not managed by on one to one basis always, but it is often one to many to one sort of. That means there is one manufacturer and one customer, between them there are multiple manys, many channel partners who are managing the relation. So, if you are the manufacturer or you are the owner of the brand, or it is your product or service for which you are looking at market share objectives, you have to understand that unless you are able to manage your partner relationships very, very well, you will not be able to manage your relationship with the end customer well. So, you are, because you are not doing it alone, you are doing it with them, which we call the ecosystem. So, managing the distribution network is like managing an ecosystem, and therefore there are multiple shared responsibilities delivering ultimately a satisfactory relationship to the end customer. And that is why this kind of channel function analysis has become very important today. And this analysis is not to be done by few people. It is important to understand that the different responsibilities for different channel entities with respect to all these tasks must be mapped, must be understood by all partners, and must be agreed upon by all partners to make this system work. So, you see, marketing research. Marketing research, there are different, like for example, the channel representatives who are the retailers or the sales force who are in direct contact, or even the telesales agents who are in direct contact with the customer. They have a very important role to play in marketing research. They provide day to day, hour by hour inputs. So, if you have a good information system, you can capture all the transactions for each individual sale that is happening at the retailer end or through your telesales agent, and you can easily develop models to understand how your products are performing with relation to the competition or with relation to your marketing objectives. Marketing communication is not the only responsibility of the marketing communication department, but today that communication responsibility must be shared by the entire channel structure. And who is supposed to do what? Who is supposed to produce the brochures, or who is supposed to produce provide a good exhaustive set of information on the web, versus who is supposed to explain that to the customer when the customer has some questions. All that must be clearly understood. So, these functions versus these partners, and each partner, what is their responsibility with respect to risk taking or physical distribution or product assembly, must be clearly understood by all partners and agreed upon. Then only this complex structure will work properly, and there will be a synergy rather than confusion in this complex setup. So, for example, I am taking up this Maruti's distribution system. All these years you have seen that Maruti distribution for the cars happened through their authorized distributors. Some of those authorized distributors provided service, most of them actually provided service, after sales service or repair or other reconditioning services, and they also provided, they were the outlets for financing. So, if we look at the earlier one, so Maruti distributors provided inputs for marketing research, they were the frontline communicators for each car and its distinctive value propositions. They were often doing the matching or customizing by providing different types of upholsteries or accessories. So, whether you will have what kind of music system you will have, those customizing, or what kind of leather upholstery or synthetic upholstery or cotton upholstery, what you will have, they did that customization. They had some negotiation margin, so they often gave a little bit more discount or less discount, and they took care of the physical distribution. They were the front for financing. They provided this financing in conjunction with other financing partners, banks or other institutions, but to the customer they were the people who brought it, the financing for stimulating the purchase. And distributors shared the risk and the service relationship management and all that. But when Maruti went into more higher valued cars, like what they are now marketing, like Baleno or the crossover S Cross or whatever it is called, or some of these high end SUVs and some new products which they are possibly planning to introduce, high value products, limited number of customers, but much higher in value. They felt the need of a different kind of distribution, and that is why they have created this what they call Nexa or whatever, and where you get a much higher end of customer support, higher level of service. Maybe in such a case they will pick up the car for servicing from your residence rather than you bringing the car and so on. So, they can create a whole value basket matching the type of the product range. So, therefore, Maruti now has two distinctive distribution channels, one more managed directly by them and another managed mostly by their distributors or third party entities. And this kind of mix is today possible and often happening. In the past, for example, IBM, they never had direct distribution for a long time, and they operated through value added resellers, another kind of VAR as they are called, another kind of distributors. That means the distributors not only provided the physical product, but they did lot of these matching, customizing, negotiation and so on, financing. And but now IBM in for their services, however, they are now operating and direct, not through intermediaries, but they may have sometimes other consultants in between, another kind of intermediary. But on the other hand, if you see the history of Dell Computer, they dealt directly through telephone, telesales and later on mostly through the web sales directly with the customer. So, the customer performed many of the roles traditionally performed by IBM workforce, sales force or the IBM distributor, and so Dell eliminated all the intermediary channels and dealt directly with the customer. It was successful, very successful for them, but the same approach can completely backfire for another company with another kind of culture, with another kind of product range. So, again I would emphasize that there is no one size or one type of distribution structure that will fit all companies. You will have to carefully study your market, your target market segment, and what kind of positioning you are making for your goods or services, and then you will have to decide depending on the transaction level and transaction intensity and complexity, you will have to decide your distribution channel. So, to summarize, factors that affect the channel structure or determination can be customer behavior, can be competitors or competitive forces, marketing strategy of your organization, resources available to you, and changes in technology. So, therefore, we will have direct channels, indirect channels. There are strengths and weaknesses for each case, and there are advantages and disadvantages, and they will need to be combined for different products in terms of these factors that affect the channel system. We will take up some instances and we will discuss more details on this in our next session. Thank you.